Our guest today, Yafit Cohn, is Vice President, Chief Sustainability Officer, and Group General Counsel at the Travelers Companies in New York City. Yafit, before that, worked at a pair of law firms, and she's one of those people when I first met, I immediately knew, like, this person is going somewhere. She's a very special person, and she's helped travelers do some very special things in the E&S space. I'm Brock Romanek, today on Zippy Point. Yafit telling our ESG story, the fulcrum. So how long did it take to come up with Travelers' ESG story?
So it took about 9 months to come up with the reporting approach that was right for travelers, along with the outline of what we were going to include in our reporting. And that sounds like an awfully long time, but it's really because of the extensive research that we conducted in that time frame. And we were committed to really making a significant investment to enhance our sustainability reporting. But we also first wanted to make sure that we were getting it right. And that's why when we first got started on this journey back in late 2017 and early 2018, we engaged with about half of our investor base and shares outstanding at that time, representing about $11.9 trillion in assets under management, to solicit their views with respect to sustainability reporting. And that was a process that I undertook along with our head of investor relations, and when speaking with asset stewardship teams with our corporate secretary as well. And one of the many questions I asked related to which ESG factors our investors thought were most relevant for a property and casualty insurance company. So as you might imagine, I walked away with literally dozens of pages of notes from those conversations. In addition to speaking with our investors, we also conducted what I call a prioritization exercise to help us focus our ESG reporting on the topics that are most relevant to our company, our business, our industry, our stakeholders. And so what we did was we first identified a universe of potentially relevant ESG topics. And we did that by reviewing a whole bunch of internal documents, analyses of prominent ESG providers and sustainability frameworks like SASB. And then what we did was we took all of those potentially relevant topics and we prioritized them, both through the investor conversations that we had, which I just described, as well as through a series of internal group discussions that we had, each of which was focused on a different stakeholder group. So customers, employees, our agent and broker partners, and even travelers itself. And I would just note there that while our focus was on our investors, we also wanted to make sure that we were taking our other stakeholders' views into account, which is why we had all those internal conversations. And then what we did at the end was we worked with our management level ESG committee, as well as all of those internal dialogue participants, to refine the list of priority topics to 16 specific topics that became the focus of our sustainability reporting. And those are the 16 topics that we call our drivers of sustained value on the Traveler Sustainability site.
So who participated in contributing to the Traveler story?
So essentially the whole organization, to be honest. So because sustainability is absolutely integrated into our business, the information that we needed to put together our sustainability report literally resided throughout the organization. So from accounting to finance to underwriting, to the Travelers Foundation, to the Travelers Institute, which is our public policy arm. And because we really wanted to provide this holistic and comprehensive view on how Travelers creates value over time, there was so much information to collect from so many individuals throughout the organization. And what I found was that often the more I peeled back the onion, the more layers there were. I just wanted to mention that what was really incredible to me throughout the process was that there was so much that we were doing as a company, and there were so many examples throughout every area of the organization of how the topics we were reporting on were deeply ingrained in the company. And I wanted to make sure I was doing justice to our comprehensive approach and that our reporting would ultimately reflect who we are and how we execute in the marketplace each day. And doing that really took well over 100 travelers, employees, all subject matter experts in different areas. And literally everything that went on to our first sustainability site, which we put up in the spring of 2019, was already in place at Travelers by the time we put the site up. So literally nothing was created for the purpose of publishing enhanced disclosures. So it was a monster undertaking, as you might imagine, but it worked. We pulled it off. And I do think that that was in large part because it was a priority from the very top of the organization. Our chairman and CEO was fully invested in this. Our vice chairman and chief legal officer was also instrumental in getting the project off the ground. And they were the ones who brought me on at Travelers to help articulate our holistic approach to sustained value creation. And everyone internal who was contributing to our reporting knew that our senior leadership felt strongly that it was very important. So that was really critical in getting the whole organization behind the initiative.
That's quite a story about your story. And having someone at the top being an advocate for this is so critical to getting it done, whether it be someone on the board or, of course, senior management. But it's amazing. It's an amazing story. So then after you figured out the Traveler story, how did you decide to bring it to life?
So like you said, it was largely a disclosure exercise for us. So really most of what we did was take an incredible amount of information and try to draft it in a way that was clear and articulate and would give the readers of our report a solid understanding of our approach. And also in the investor conversations that we had in the months before we came up with our approach, one of the things that we heard repeatedly from investors was that they're less appreciative of sustainability reports that try to reach multiple audiences. And we heard repeatedly from investors that they're less interested in the human interest stories, and they're less interested in discussions of philanthropic efforts, unless, of course, they have a direct connection to the business and shareholder value. And relatedly, we heard from many investors that best-in-class sustainability reports demonstrate how ESG issues are integrated into the business and describe the benefits to the company from the various ESG initiatives that the company is investing in. So all of that fit perfectly with our integration of sustainability into our business, as I've mentioned. And so ultimately, the way that we approached our reporting was really to integrate to the best of our ability disclosure regarding each of our salient ESG topics with a discussion of our long-term strategy for value creation. And we decided not to embed any of those human interest type stories into the main body of our reporting. But we also at the same time wanted to be inclusive of other stakeholders who we recognized were also important consumers of sustainability information. So what we decided to do was to bring our disclosures to life a little bit more by presenting these brief vignettes about key initiatives relating to each environmental and social topic that we discuss on our site. But we put those at the bottom of the relevant page in a way that doesn't interfere with the primary disclosure. So to give you an example, we have a story on our website about partnerships that we have in place with local nonprofits to offer job training placement for individuals with disabilities. And we also have an initiative and a story on the website about an initiative with American Forests whereby we fund the planting of one tree for each personal insurance billing account converted to paperless billing. And so that approach allows stakeholders who are interested in learning more about those initiatives to kind of click into them separately, but it's sort of unobtrusive. Another thing that I'll mention that we did is that because we found that many of our investors were not interested in hearing about initiatives they perceived to be philanthropic, but then they became interested when we highlighted how those initiatives actually fit into Travelers' long-term value creation strategy. What we did was, for many of our community-related initiatives, we explicitly delineated both the community benefits as well as the benefits to Travelers from each of those initiatives.
And then when it comes to the metrics, how do you decide what's the right blend of qualitative and quantitative metrics?
So 2 points on that. First, as much as sustainability information is likened to financial information, in the end of the day, there are just some things that cannot be measured or just can't be boiled down to a neat number. So, how do you measure culture, for example? How do you measure ethics? So with some topics, qualitative disclosure was really all we could provide or was the lion's share of what we could provide. And even in some cases where we did have a quantitative metric to include, a lot of times the context around it was absolutely key. So one example of that is diversity and inclusion. where the programs and efforts of the company are critical and put the quantitative metrics in context. The other point is that when a specific quantitative metric was requested of us, or when we saw a specific metric that was recommended to be disclosed in one of the disclosure frameworks, we asked ourselves 3 questions. First, do we even have the data requested, and are we comfortable that it's reliable? Second, assuming that we do, would that data be meaningful? And third, are there unintended consequences that would result from providing that data? And so in the end, I would say in general, we tried to include metrics that we were confident were accurate, that we felt would be meaningful to provide, and where we didn't have significant reservations regarding unintended consequences.
It's amazing to me how much more creativity you have to do a report like this compared to a proxy statement, which in recent years has become more of a storytelling document about a company's proxy season related matters, including governance. But here you really, the ability to include vignettes, it's amazing. I wonder if one day we'll see some of that stuff in proxy statements. I doubt it, but it actually is not a bad idea.
Let's see.
So thanks so much. There's other videos with Yafit, a link to which are below. Thank you.
Thanks, Brock.